Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this morning's YouthLead webinar webcast, Youth Participation in Humanitarian Mapping in a Pandemic. We want to just make sure everybody can hear us okay. And if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat box. Before we get started, I'm just going to introduce myself and a little bit more about our team. My name is Sarah Slade and I direct the Youth Economic Opportunities Network at Making Sense International, and I'm also the Senior Youth Engagement Advisor for YP2LE. And I'm part of a larger YouthLead team that includes Christy Olenek, our Technical Director, Christy Scott, our Director of YP2LE, Maria Brindelmeyer, who is our Knowledge Management Specialist, and of course our YouthLead team, Rachel Stepka on Communications, Ikenna, also on KM, he's an Atlas Core Fellow with our team. And then of course we have Ephraim and Abalaji, who are both Atlas Core Fellows with Making Sense and a key part of the YouthLead team, working with all of our YouthLead ambassadors and peer advisors to coordinate these kinds of learning events throughout your tenure. Just to give you some background about youth power learning and evaluation and kind of help understand why we are focused on positive youth development and what that is. YP2LE is a project of USAID, and the purpose of the activity is to advance PYD learning through a series of activities, technical buy-ins, and activities through the YouthLead platform. So the YouthLead is a global network of more than 7,000 young changemakers from around the world that started in 2018 as an activity under YP2LE and that continues today. We are focused on sharing knowledge, tools, best practices, and what works in PYD. YouthLead as a global hub is for young changemakers between the ages of 15 and 35. And our purpose here is to enable young people to maximize their impact through networking, access to information, opportunities, learning, and mentoring. The platform is a place where young people from different countries and different networks can connect, get inspired, and learn from one another, as well as access a range of resources, information, and learning events like today. The site is available in English and Spanish and French and has Google Translate throughout the site. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Abalaji and our YouthLead ambassadors to lead this morning's webinar. Thank you again so much to everyone for organizing this important topic this morning. And thanks again to everyone for joining us. We will be hosting more YouthLead ambassadors in the months ahead, webinars in the months ahead, excuse me. So I hope you will join us then. Thanks, Abalaji.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for the introduction. Thank you for starting us up on today's webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from wherever you're joining us from. Today's session basically is to highlight, the cross benefit of the YouthLead Network and the YouthMapper Network to young people supporting and advancing their educational sustainable goals, and also ignite the interest of young minds in participating in humanitarian sector mapping. We are joined by one of our YouthLead ambassadors, Maliha, our YouthLead ambassador from Bangladesh. She would share resources with us, help us to identify and also develop and also inspire our interest in humanitarian mapping. We're also joined by a guest of ours, Taiwo Ogunwomi, who's also a GIS and information management consultant, who would also share, his journey in his career in terms of humanitarian mapping and why humanitarian mapping is important. So for a start, I would like to call on Taiwo, who is our guest speaker, to just introduce himself briefly. Taiwo currently supports the UNIOM, United Nations International Organization for Migration's humanitarian program to immigrants and internally displaced people in northern eastern Nigeria. So this is the area heavily invested by the Boko Haram insurgency. Taiwo also supports the COVID-19 preparedness and response in the northeastern Nigeria by contributing to the designs of maps, dashboard development, building, and maintenance of relevant geospatial data infrastructure for the IOM mission in Nigeria. Before he joined the UNIOM, he used to work with the Action Against Hunger AAH in Nigeria as a management information systems, and was responsible for the information database management of their WASH nutrition and health program in vulnerable communities in northeastern Nigeria. So Taiwo is highly skilled in humanitarian mapping, OpenStreetMaps, geospatial analysis, data visualization, and many more. So Taiwo, it's good to have you here with us. Are you able to speak?
Okay, yes.
Okay, great. So thank you for joining us this morning. So my first question to you this morning, Taiwo, is to really understand, why your interest in geospatial mapping. What really inspired you to go on this course of geospatial mapping?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Abalaji. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, centrally to answer your question, what really inspired me to start a career in GIS was centrally because I had a background in geography, and not that alone. After I then start thinking of what's the technology. I mean, like a career that involves tech at the same time involve statistics and mathematics and natural sciences. And I find that GIS is one of the things, and it's a new career that not everybody have been trying to adopt, and it provides a lot of solutions, be it natural environment, be it human environment. And that was one of the first things that made me to start developing interest in GIS. I developed interest in GIS like 6 years ago. That was when I was in training level, during my undergraduate studies. And after school, yes, I started learning, doing several online courses. I joined some of the volunteer programs online, like OpenStreetMap, for instance, GIS Corp, and those key, volunteer, share my interest in it, and I begin to learn over the time.
I know,
so,
yeah, go ahead. I remember in
go ahead, Richard.
All right. So I remember in one of our conversations, you mentioned about you having to volunteer during programs with organizations for you to be able to actually gain experience. I just want you to actually, speak briefly on the importance of young people basically volunteering to actually acquire skills. I know you said you had volunteered for free, even for many organizations, before you to acquire some of the skills that you really needed. So if you could just touch briefly on that also.
Yes, there was a time during my service corps, I had to volunteer with UNICEF in the humanitarian program as a GIS person, because I've done several educational understanding, have done several online courses. Now this now comes to the application, and I feel okay, fine. The best thing I can equally do is to volunteer myself in creating maps for free, freelancer. So I had to volunteer with UNICEF. That was like 4 years ago, in helping them to create maps, in using GPS to do some house-to-house survey data collection. So this gave me a field understanding of, okay, this is how this actually works. And that was when I got my first internship with Action Against Hunger. I used to be an intern with Action Against Hunger before I become an MI's assistant. I had to intern with them. And the internship now exposed me to various applications of GIS. That is, because I Action Against Hunger engage in several, key part of the SDG goal. Part of it is food security, health, nutrition, for instance. So as an intern with them, I was an MIS intern with them, and my major core, activities was as a GIS person. So this exposed me to the field. I started going to Northeastern Nigeria to visit campsites, support the field team in developing tools to collect information on camp information, people that have been affected by the conflict, for instance. And this lasted for like 6 months. After, they said, okay, fine, you have the skills, you have the potential. Why not we just give you a role here? And that was how I ended up being a MIS assistant. And, the whole portfolio now began to enlarge. I started creating maps to support food security. For instance, now you might want to know, like, okay, fine, how can a GIS person help in mapping to understand where in a community, in a country, where are people insecure when it comes to food? So the research now comes to the fact that we have to collect information on how many times do you eat in a day, what's your source of income. Then as a geospatial analyst, you need to combine all these variables, you overlay them, so we can see the hotspot of people who are food insecure. So this helps the organization precisely to make a better response, to support them in food distribution, in enlightenment, and others like that. And when it comes to health also, my organization have to do with, they want to know what was the sense of this community to the nearest healthcare facilities. As a geospatial person, you have to be able to map all the health facilities. If they are not mapped, as a result, you need to get data collector to collect it, so that we can have a buffer distance of, okay, what's the distance of community people to the nearest hospitals? Do they even have access to good health care? And that coming to one of the good ESGs that talk about good health well-being, and you know, that coming to limelight. Another thing is the water sanitation programs being anchored. Then they want to construct boreholes to have a good water supply for the communities, and as well as the IDP camp people. Essentially, as a geospatial person, you need to be able to map the best place to construct a borehole. For instance, now that is in this situation, then you have to look at the elevation, you overlay the elevation, you have to overlay several other variables so that to make us know that, okay, fine, what's the groundwater level of this particular elevation? So this is one of my major key roles then while I was actioning against hunger.
Can you talk about you know, so now we all know that we are at the age of pandemic, and then it's really ravaging communities around the world. I know that your current role right now with United Nations IOM involves that you actually lead or you know, contribute to the COVID-19 mapping in your role. So can you speak to you know, what has been like for you, and then why is it that you know, why is it also important that you know, we are actually mapping during these times of COVID-19?
Oh, thank you, Vijay. When COVID-19 striking, initially we have several IDP camps in northeastern Nigeria where people are living. And when COVID-19 striking, then there's need for the humanitarian organization, the UN, the ING to provide much support. And in this regard, as a geospatial expert, you have to provide analysis of where do we have clustered of people, because they want to provide response in the sense of giving, they want to construct hand washing stations where people can always wash their hand regularly. Remember that one of the key recommendations by WHO is that they should wash their hand regularly. So in this case now, INGOs, international organizations want to, you know, build out hand washing stations where people can always wash their hand. As a result, as a GIS person, they need to understand where there is clustered of community household in this regard. That's one. So you should be able to produce a map for us to know, okay, people who live there, they're up to 1,000. Definitely there should be like 5 hand washing stations being constructed there. And after, at the same time too, we want to know to what extent have we constructed hand washing over the month. That is, the board members, the donor want to be able to see on a dashboard view, on a spatial survey view, to say, okay, fine, we have like 10 hand washing stations all over now, and we need to have more. Equally, at the same time too, we need to know where are the nearest hospitals, where are the nearest testing stations. As a geospatial person, the government need at the same time, they really want to know where are the nearest hospitals where people can get tested. In this regard, a geospatial person is being required to map all these points and to create instituted analysis of the best place where we can locate such facilities based on the trend of, you know, people who have tested positive over the time. Remember that there are so many information about people who have tested positive for COVID-19, and then we can always see it like, okay, fine, this is where we have much people, and this can reference back to the John Snow 1854 analysis on cholera in London. And this is one of the things that a geospatial analyst person now do now, to be able to see where do we have cluster, what may be the factors, do we have much of people in the urban having all this thing, and how can the government respond based on your map? We can be able to see, we can make a better informed decisions in that regard.
So thank you very much, Taiwo. My next question is around understanding the youth's participation in you know, GIS or geospatial mapping right now. Have you seen like an uptick in interest for more young people, you know, going into this particular field, especially during this era of pandemic? Young people, you know, particularly showing a lot of interest at this time. And then if yes, another question is also like, you know, what are the challenges you've seen in this field, especially during the time of the pandemic itself? What challenges have you seen with regards to mapping in local communities, especially in the northern region of Nigeria, where, you know, the Boko Haram insurgency is really still ongoing?
Thank you, Apology. Firstly, at the moment, we only have few youths who are passionate about coming into GIS as a career, even though as much as there are so many platforms that provide online learning for you to groom yourself compared to last 10 years where you have to go to a training center. Now you have several online courses. There are several open source software in the regards, and whereas even the field, the humanitarian sector itself does not have more GIS, specialists, and whereas they need more and more and more people to come on board. I just always do try as much as possible just to introduce some people to where they can learn, share them. Make them to join several volunteer groups like OpenStreetMap, GIS Corp, where you can be exposed to all these small skills, and you can as well, as a youth, contribute to your quotas in mapping community around you, map buildings around you, map several facilities, so that at any point in time, if there's hazard, if there's biological hazard like COVID-19 right now, expert professional can be able to have all this information already on the map and it will aid their analysis. That's one of the key things that youth of today can help just to contribute to society. That's one. And two, when you look at the challenges that we face as a geospatial personnel, especially in the fragile context like Nigeria, one of the key challenges is that sometimes you cannot, even more like before, that you have access to go to the camp, you have access to go to some some dangerous places. At this point in time, there's no really, there's restriction to go to some places. Because why? Because of disease transmission and other things like that. But before COVID, one of the things that we used to do is that we always have a security expert at every, at every camp, at every community. There are security experts who always, seems to determine whether this place is accessible or not, or is safe to be. But the only key challenge is that, it's dangerous, quite fine. Humanitarian, work is not like something that is very, but yet I can assure you that you're safe. You always say the tendency of being harmed is slightly low. It's low.
All right, thank you very much, Taiwo, for starting up us on this conversation. So I would also like to call on Maliha, who is our main speaker for today. She will be running through a presentation. Our presentation has been pre-recorded, just because of network connectivity issues. So I'll run briefly through Malia's introduction, and then Maria can go ahead and introduce herself. So Maria is YouthLead ambassador from Bangladesh, and her interest is in humanitarian mapping, leadership, women empowerment, and disaster management. Malia's interest is around empowering women as the best human resource through capacity building and combining the divergent areas of disaster management with the humanitarian mapping aspect of development. Maliha, I don't know if you want to just say hello quickly, but then if not, I would just go ahead and with your slides presentation.
No, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining, and I'm really excited about this webinar. So I'm really excited, and thank you. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you very much, Malia. So since you already have your pre-recorded webinar here, so we can just run through that and then go ahead into the question and answer for the webinar.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Maliha Binte Mohiuddin and I'm from Bangladesh. This YouthLead Ambassador webinar is on youth participation in humanitarian mapping in a pandemic. So I'm also working.
Okay, I think I need to, just a minute. We'll go ahead and share.
With youth mappers as a regional ambassadors, so I think that these two experiences are really helping me to learn new stuff, and I think that's what I am going to share with all of you. So at first you can see the logo of youth mappers in this slide. So I know that there are some of you are really interested to know about youth mappers, and for them I really wanted to say that Youth Mappers is an international university consortium on mapping for resilience, and during this pandemic Youth Mappers had helped provided data to OpenStreetMap to save lives via healthsites.io. And this webinar is about that how youth is playing very important role in humanitarian mapping, and I'm very glad to share that with all of you. So now Why humanitarian mapping is important? Because in many countries, particularly the low and the middle income countries, they have some kind of data gaps, and these countries often may have the least resilience to any kind of emergencies like drought, earthquakes, and that has been like increasing the number of major disasters in different countries are placing huge pressure on the responders, vulnerable communities, and aid organizations, and that is really shifting the fundamental spatial data needs of this century. And identifying and addressing these data gaps in advance is a big part of humanitarian mapping. And also there are lots of benefits in humanitarian mapping, which I'm really going to discuss with all of you, like collecting and validating the humanitarian data, and also you can visualize the techniques for mapping and formulating any kind of strategies and for mitigating the effects of disasters or any kind of pandemic like COVID-19. And also that's completely going to give good insights to the humanitarian responders, the vulnerable planners, and the policymakers. And last but not least, it is really addressing the privacy, fairness, justice, and the historical bias challenge just in spatial temporal data and also in the humanitarian decision-making fact. So for that reason, I think that humanitarian mapping is very important. Yeah, how humanitarian mapping and youth mappers. So envisioning the untraveled world through my mapping makes me feel like the global citizen that I am. That's the thing what I always do believe in, because when I have really engaged myself with YouthMapper's program in 2017, I really felt this word, and I think that it is really inside me. And you can see in this slide that there's a picture that everyone is wearing the cap, and this picture has been snapped in the YouthMapper's Leadership Fellow Program in Nepal in 2017. So we are like, there's a group of students who have joined this Leadership Fellow Program, and there were mentors, professors, people from USA Geo Centers. So that was really a very good bonding between us, because these are the people who really made us feel like that we can do something in life. And okay, so right now I really wanted to discuss about what is Youth Mappers. I know like all of you are really excited to know about it, and especially so students and their faculty advisor in the US and in developing nations are invited to join the Youth Mappers, an international university consortium on mapping for resilience. Like I said before, we organize a global community of learners, researchers, educators, and scholars to create and use the open geographic data that directly address locally defined development challenges worldwide. And YouthMapper's mission is to cultivate a generation of young mappers to create resilience community and to define their world by mapping. So this consortium supports university efforts in many ways. It's really offering the meaningful global learning experience and also building a very good social engagement with others. And it's also enhancing the long-term scientific capacity. It's really involving the students in leadership fellows opportunities, encouraging the research fellowships, and bringing the regional ambassador themes. So there are a lot of variation the program is working on. And we're really excited about the newcomers who are really going to engage with this program. So I think they're really going to get benefit through it, and they are really going to learn a lot, and they can really share this learning with others. The vision of Youth Mappers, we don't just build maps, we build mappers, and there's a network more than 5,000 university students mappers organized in 212 campus chapters across 50 countries. And we hope that a lot of universities are going to be the part of this wonderful consortium. USA generously support this program, and the funding partners are Texas Tech University, George Washington University, and West Virginia University. And Arizona State University is the lead fiscal and administrative partner in collaboration with Texas Tech, George Washington University, and West Virginia University. There is also the link of YouthMapper Network has given, and don't forget to check the link of YouthMapper's press kit, because there is a lot of stuffs like the code of ethics, terms of participation, and YouthMapper's brand name. Please let us know if you are really having any kind of issue to navigate the documents, so we can help you out through it. So just let us know about that. Humanitarian mapping, and how does it work? Actually, humanitarian mapping is really helping us to map the health clinics, and also really presenting the accurate mapping data, which is really important during this COVID-19 situation. And this humanitarian mapping data is also describes a lot of informations like the public and the private health services, the location of hospitals with detailing, and as well as lots of issues like the internally displaced people, the food insecurity, and lots of stuffs like that. And I think that envisioning the future application of humanitarian mapping to work towards more advanced health interventions, sort of meeting people where they are at. So if there is certain areas that we know vulnerable people spend time in, then so we can design those kinds of intervention that provide resources to them right in these locations. So that's completely going to be very helpful for any kind of vulnerable communities during any kind of disasters. Humanitarian mapping and youth mappers. So youth mappers are also contributing their time to create data in places of extreme poverty where USAID works. So we are just creating the geospatial data on OpenStreetMap for project, which really addresses the most pressing needs of society in places where fundamental information on basic infrastructure is really rare, and from food security in Ghana to peace planning in Colombia to flooding in my native country, Bangladesh. So this is the way that youth mappers are working for the humanitarian mapping side, and you can also see the pictures that they're really collecting the data from the field. They're really doing mapping on their laptops. So these are some of the pictures. So yeah, I hope that that's completely going to motivate all of you to join with this program. So this is the humanitarian mapping and how youth can help. So I'm really going to tell you a story. So I hope that all of you are not already bored with me. So this is the picture that you can see, that Mrs. Serene and her son. So her son is suffering from high fever, and his condition is getting really bad at midnight during this pandemic situation. And Mrs. Serene really wants to take him to the hospital. So the problem is that she doesn't know the nearby hospital, which are right now open at this time. And she doesn't have the hospital phone number. So right now, how can we help her? So I'm really going to explain to the next. So youth mappers add health data to OpenStreetMap via healthsites.io. So this is the hashtag map for COVID-19. So at first you really need to have an account on OpenStreetMap. If you don't have, then you really need to sign up, and that is really easy. So after logging to your OpenStreetMap, so after sign up into OpenStreetMap, you really need to navigate the healthsites.io website. So, and after entering into this website, you really need to sign up, and then you really need to found those kinds of places where you really wanted to add the health data, and it can be the area where you really knew, or you have lived right now, or you're living right now, or you have lived in previous. now you really need to look into the detailing of the hospital, that do you know the address of the hospital, do you know the phone number of this hospital or not, and as well as the healthcare, and what about, is it open for 24/7 or not. So those kinds of informations, that if you are really confident about this information, then please do add those kinds of health data information. But if you are confused about it, then it's better not to add, because these informations need to be accurate as much as you can, because this information is about saving someone's life, so that has to be accurate. If you really knew any information, that is there any wheelchair, or how many there is a full-time bed or part-time bed that you can see on the picture, so you can add that. So in my case, I really knew the phone number, and I know that this is 24/7 that's open. So for that reason, I have really saved those data, and because I'm really confident about it, that's why I added it. If I were confused, then I'm not going to add that one. So, and then after adding it, you really need to save the data, and then you really want your friends to contribute so that they can help out those kinds of information with their accurate knowledge about the health services. So and you can share that one. So that's what I did, that I just helped youth mappers add health providers data to OpenStreetMap and share health data. So that's very important, because after sharing it, your friends will be really motivated by it, and that the YouthLead peers will find their local clinics on the map. And don't forget to add the hashtag of YouthMappers and the hashtag map for COVID-19 so in the chain set comments before saving and uploading your contribution to the healthsites.io. So this is the way you can improve the OpenStreetMap data. And I think that I've just discussed it through the pictures. I think that would be really some kind of difficult for you to understand. So if you really wanted to get the whole tutorial, which is really nice and informative, and that has done by Dr. Patricia Solis, so you can go through this link and then you can see the whole process. And I really request all of you to contribute in it. So that's completely going to help us to improve the health data during this pandemic situation. Why you should join in humanitarian mapping? Because I think that youth should care about this social issue during this COVID-19, because by adding this information, sharing this health data, it can save someone's life. Like the story that I was there, that Mrs. Serene, she was really tense because she doesn't know that which hospital is right now open at the midnight, and she doesn't know about the address clearly. So if we are just young people like us really going to contribute to add the data into the health side, so on that moment Mrs. Serene can easily get the information, and she can really take her son to the hospital on time, so which can save someone's life. You can really contributing in it knowingly and unknowingly. So that's a wonderful thing. And for that reason, I think we should join the humanitarian mapping during this pandemic situation. But in my country, I really saw that the young people, especially the women and the girls, are really facing lots of domestic violence. And I don't know how many there will be dropouts after the COVID-19. So I think that girls' education and the women's health are very important issues for the development of any nation. So how I'm making change, inspiring more youth interest in humanitarian mapping. In this slide, you can see some of the pictures, and the pictures were taken place into the Keio University, Japan. So where the students were trained how to do maps by using a lot of technical tools like ID Editor, GeoSim, and how to use the Kobo toolbox and field mapping and techniques, and how to use the field papers. So lots of like that. So we are having a good time in there. So my work is to motivate the students and to organize and create and formally establish university YouthMapper chapter with the permission of the committee. So it was really interesting. So, social issues hero. So, my social issue hero is Dr. Patricia Solis because I always like to believe in some words that was said by Mahatma Gandhi, that is, be the change that you wish to see in the world. I used to read these words, but some people in our lives who made me believe in it, and Dr. Patricia Solis is one of them because she is all the time inspiring the female empowerment and also bringing the young people in the humanitarian mapping sector. And she is someone who is really amazing as a mentor, and I'm really lucky to have her in my life. And this is the picture that you can see that I'm taking my best vlog ever. Mapping is like a box of chocolates from Dr. Patricia Solis and during 2017 Youth Mappers Leadership Fellow Program. So I think that for that reason, she is my social issue hero. Girls in Humanitarian Mapping and Let's Girls Map. You can see the picture. And this is a Let's Girls Map campaign, and it's a Youth Mappers campaign with special emphasis on International Women's Day, March 8, and International Day of the Girl, October 11. And that really features the mapping efforts that support women and girls issues and to build an inclusive mapping communities for female students around the world. So here's the link. You can go through this link and to know more about this campaign. So I think YouthLead peers can join into this program because I think this is a very fantastic opportunity for you and your university to be the part of this consortium. If you have no new chapter, you can apply for the new chapter. And if you have the new chapters already in your campus, then you can contribute to it. And we have also given the application link in this slide, so you can go and your university can apply to this consortium. So we will be really great to have all of you to be the part of this consortium. This YouthLead and YouthMapper Network, I think this two network is really encouraging the power of youth to various activities, and people from diverse backgrounds around the world can exchange their information, their knowledge with each other, which is really amazing. And the young empowerment by bringing them in the front lines, it's one of the most important thing that these two networks are doing. And also this also facilitates the youth collaboration in achieving educational sustainable development goals. So I think that these both two networks who are really working amazing projects and a lot of factors which really represent the young generation of this century. YouthLead is a virtual platform to help young change makers 15 to 35 years old to make a very good positive impact in their own communities and also achieve the goals by exchanging resources, information, and best practices. And YouthLead is really promoting the YouthLead Acts of Good campaign, which educates the peers about an issue which is really important to you and share information about COVID-19. I think this is really amazing, and I think there's a lot to learn. And according to me, I was really selected to lead and engage and support the social change and good young youth development activities with other young change makers in my own community and around the world. And I think that this is one of the most excellent opportunities for me, and I'm really grateful to my YouthLead mentors and as well as my peer advisors for that. And my campaign is about the youth participation in humanitarian mapping in a pandemic, which has a good, and I think that as a wonderful collaboration with this campaign. So, advice for peers, I think you really need to embrace the changes in knowledge, skills, and attitudes in order to get a more, I think, resilient community for all. And I think that you really need to encourage and support and promote the educational sustainable development goals through your activities. And apart from that, I really believe that you really need to trust your own inner self, seek guidance from the experts, and also share your ideas with others and be confident. I think that there's nothing is impossible. Questions that if you have, and I'm really happy to answer that.
Thank you very much, Maliha. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. So always nice to hear from young people, leading change, and really inspiring more young people to actually actively be involved in this field. So I know that we are getting close to our time, but I also want to see if there are questions from any of our social media feeds, and I know Ephraim has been monitoring that a lot. Ephraim, have you seen any questions so far from my audience? I know Taiwo is still on the call also, so if there are questions, if you want to also unmute and then go ahead and ask these questions already.
Thank you, Abolaji. Thank you, Maliha, and our guest speaker. There's someone who goes by the name Mary in the chat box who said, I'm very happy to be here learning a lot. And please share us the link to join YouthMappers. So please, Maliha, share the link. And another question from social media, which is directly to Maliha. So the YouthMappers initiative is impressive, but how do you make sure that these young people from different places of the country, how do you make sure that the data that they are inputting into the website is accurate, so that other users can utilize this information? So this is about a question about accuracy, a question about the data input into the website.
Okay, great. Maliha, you go.
So thank you so much for listening. And I think that, I think this is a very good question, because at first, in any kind of disaster or any kind of task has been made, we are really going to map those kinds of data. And there is a validation tool that we use in GeoSem that we really validate those kinds of data, that has been put in a right direction or not. And there's also a validation team in YouthMappers that we really do the validation of the data, because sometimes there is an overlapping of data and that kind of problems really happen. And for that reason, to navigate those kinds of problems, we have a validation tools.
Great. Thank you very much, Maliha. There's also a question in the chat box here, and the question is someone is asking, I would like to ask Maliha a question. As a regional ambassador, how is she using her leadership to help youth mappers in mapping during this pandemic? So this is more of a leadership question. How are you taking leadership?
I think for me, because in 2017, I was being the leadership fellow in YouthMappers, and this YouthMappers network is not only about teaching mapping. This is also about that how to bring the young people in the leadership platform, and this platform, I'm really grateful that that has really, I have getting a lot of good guidance from the mentors, and I'm just using my voice to empower the young people, especially the females, because I have seen that they are really facing a lot of problems because in the technological development, and as well as I'm a student of disaster management, and people really think that, mapping is some kind of like stuff about only geographic students can do it. But I think I really wanted to, like, through this program, the leadership program that I attended in Nepal, that has really changed my perception in it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Maliha. So also to a question to Taiwo also. So Taiwo, you mentioned earlier
because
about...
I'm a student of disaster management, and it's a multidisciplinary.
Oh, okay. I think that was like network lag again. So Taiwo, I wanted to ask you a question on the role of women in disaster and mapping, especially in Nigeria, especially in the areas in the northeastern region. Are you seeing more girls also going into mapping? What are the challenges you're also seeing, in having more women actually engaging more in mapping activities like this, especially during this pandemic?
Yes, thank you, Richard. Although at the moment we don't really have much, female coming into this profession, and which is quite unfortunate. And even there have been several advocating for, we having girls in this profession just to make it to the gender equality. But there are few, not much, not much. Some don't want to come to the project context. They don't want to work in the prior context. They'd be like, oh, Northern Nigeria, Boko Haram. I don't want to be there. I can't even narrate that. But that's why we now encourage that. Even if you don't have to be in the feed, you can as well contribute. Just like Maliha said, you can contribute by joining OpenStreetMap, join YouthMapper, support in contributing your skills in mapping locations that are on map, so that people in the field can make use of this. But yeah, there are several advocacy, in line to just enlighten girls, female, to come into the field. Even if you see several advertisements in the UN, they always say if females are encouraged to apply, just for them to come on board. But we are still saying we hope they will come.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Maliha, and here's a question for you also. You mentioned earlier, you've been at the forefront of actually hoping to actually expand the YouthMappers network. I would like to, ask a question around how are you doing this? How are you, spearheading the opening of different chapters in your own communities and schools, and also in different other regions? How are you going about this? Especially for young people who might be interested in also wanting to join or open or maybe form their own network of mappers. How can they go about creating those networks?
Okay, so at first my job, when I'm working as a regional ambassador, so my work is to just connect with the networking of the university. So at first I had the permission from YouthMappers, and I went to the institution which I really like, very much interested about YouthMappers, and I talked with the students and as well as with the teachers, and for that reason, the teachers, sometimes in my country context, the teacher needs to be really convinced about opening a YouthMappers chapter. So I really, before doing any kind of training, I really need to give presentations. I need to do the campaign thing, and especially by putting the posters around in the campus so that people really get to know about YouthMappers. And then I was really introducing them with YouthMappers, and then I really invited them for the training. So this is the way actually I work, and on, as well as Marcella, the managing director of YouthMappers, she really helped me out to do the work more in a formally and not to do any mistakes. So yeah, really grateful to them for that.
Awesome. I also see that Child Belvin, I hope I got his name correctly, also shared in the link the direct application to the YouthMappers network. So feel free to definitely join the YouthMappers. Maliha, please go ahead.
Yeah, Shad is a technical advisor in YouthMappers and one of my favorite mentors. So yeah, and thank you so much, Chad, for sharing it. I'm really happy to see you here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe we can have Chad make a comment on this session right now. Chad, would you like to go ahead and make a comment? Okay, looks like it doesn't have audio. Okay, there you go.
Sorry. Yeah, I had my my computer shut, so my microphone wasn't working. Yeah, I was one of the co-founders of YouthMappers, and it just warms my heart to see Maliha, speaking so highly of the program and everything that she's done since being chosen for the 2017 program. And there's a lot of potential there. And I think, the more chapters we have on board and the more people we have on board, the bigger and stronger the network is, and the more impressive things that we can do. So if you have any questions, there's some email links on the website you can just reach out to. You can reach out to me personally or Maliha. We'd be happy to have you on board.
Maybe a follow-up question to you, Chad, also. I mean, for other young people in different countries, for example, maybe Senegal, in Peru, who are interested in having a YouthMappers network, what's the process like for them? Do they need to request to join the network? Do they need to request to create a network in their own local communities?
Yeah, well, it's based at universities. So if you get a group of students together at the university and you want to start a club, you'll find your one professor who's interested in being the mentor to help with the continuity of that program, so it can go on after those students graduate. And, you'll run it through the process at the university to make sure that you're sanctioned at the school, and that will help you get some resources on campus. Maybe they'll let you use the library or something. Depending on whatever the current status is. And, then you fill out the application, and, you'll hold meetings and you'll bring people together and you'll hold trainings, and, you know, we'll tag all of your OSM usernames, and then that way we can provide metrics on how much mapping's been done through the YouthMappers Network.
Thank you very much, Chad. So I would hand over to my colleague Ephraim, who would lead us into like closing out the session. Thank you, Maliha, so much for taking the time, and thank you, Taiwo. Thank you, Chad, also for those comments also. Ephraim, over to you.
Thank you very much, Abolaje. Thank you, our speakers. And there was a late question.
Oh, okay.
This is just, if we have time. This is for Taiwo. If there is any opportunity for online volunteerism, especially during COVID, to practice and learn about geospatial work, you can drop the link or any website that you know for the young people who are watching this on social media.
Taiwo?
Okay. Yes,
Oh.
I'm going to drop that here. I think I will drop that here on this Zoom chat, and I can as well find a way to drop it on the Facebook too. I think I have like 3 here on my tab. I'm just going to drop it so they can sign up and join and learn. We have S3, we have GIS Corp. So through this means they can contribute their quota towards during the COVID-19 period and even further more. I'll do that right now.
Thank you very much, Taiwo. Ephraim?
Thank you very much, Taiwo. So everyone, thanks very much for this awakening presentation. It was very thoughtful, and also thanks our participants both on Zoom and Facebook Live streaming. One last message from our YouthLead team is that if you have not yet joined the YouthLead.org, we encourage you to do so. This will enable you to network with other young change makers and join the discussion groups. And as a member, you can also post contents, for example, resources, blogs, short videos, events, funding opportunities, and also you can get coverage for events and webinars like this on our website. And for every contribution, you'll earn points and you will earn badges based on those points. And every month, members also get the YouthLead newsletter, which highlights young change makers and other resources and links. You can also follow us on our social media, Twitter and Facebook. And above all, reach out to the speakers, today's speakers, Maliha and Taiwo, and continue the discussion about youth participation on humanitarian mapping. Next slide, please. So we would like to thank our various sponsors who are promoting YouthLead to their youth networks and contribute resources. You can see all our sponsors on the slide right now. And our sponsors are offering their expertise, knowledge on various topics, and we work with them to organize skill building training, webinars for other YouthLead members, just like the one we did today. And you'll hear some of them in the future webinars. Finally, once again, thank you very much for joining us. And we hope you will join our next webinar. And please check our website for the latest updates on webinars, events, and other resources. It's www.youthlead.org. And as we said in the beginning, the slides and the recording will be made available to all of you on youthlead.org on the website and sent all the registrants. We hope to see you next time. And until then, please stay safe and keep washing your hands and maintain social distancing to prevent yourself from COVID. Have a good day or evening, and thank you very much. Stay well.
Taiwo and Maliha, really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Abolaje. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.